To Policy and Projects Committee meeting of October. I'll open with the Karakia Timatanga. Mai te pai mona raro ki te tai, mai te awatonga raro ki te awaraki, tēnei te hapuri, awhiai e taratahi, whānau, hara mai te toki, haumi e, hui e, tai. Apologies. I believe we have Robin Cherry-Campbell. Is there?
Apology from Ron?
Oh, I haven't had one, but I just...
Yeah, she asked to be an apology,
But nothing from her. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Williams. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Gallen. All in favour?
Aye.
Conflicts of interest declaration. Do you have any conflicts of interest? No. Public forum. Confirmation of the minutes from the 16th of August. Do you have any motions? I've moved that the minutes of the Policy and Projects Committee meeting held on 16th of August 2023 are true and correct. Thank you, Councillor Newman. Seconder, Councillor Della. All in favour?
Aye.
Move on to item 6, reports and major projects update. Welcome to the table, Johannes.
Anything else? Yep. Kia ora, and thank you, Chair, and committee members and councillors. So just a few things. I'd take the report as read and then just want to highlight a few items. The first one is just on page 18, page 17 and 18, where I'm referring to the irrigation. There's a mistake there where we refer to the new irrigation pots to producing 10 litres per second each. We're actually irrigating 10 litres per second in total from the UV. So just a minor typo there. Then I would like to point out that we've reached practical completion for stage 2 and 3 of the reservoir project, which is a great milestone for us. We're currently, we've applied for our certificate for code of compliance, and we are now working through the defects list. There we go. And then the next thing is we are planning to go out to the market by the end of the week for the solar project that is funded through the Better Off funding. The initial reports that we've received is that there's a lot of potential, that even if we didn't have the funding, the business case would still be very strong for changing to solar for our high electrical consumption buildings. So with that, I take the report as read.
Thank you, Johannes. Questions?
I've got one. There's a reference in here to the Waikato Regional Council, and I'm not confused by that.
Happy to. So they're managing the consent process on our behalf. So if we've engaged them to manage the consenting and obtain the consent for station. So sorry, they issue the building consents for dams.
Oh,
So we go through them. There's not many people that can do that.
Councillor Ayling?
I just had a question on the wastewater treatment plant upgrade and wondering if there was any update on the dealings with CHBE.
At the moment, we're still, it's lawyers at 6 paces, so trading correspondence between the lawyers and working through legal technical issues. At this stage, I haven't got an update other than that.
Okay.
Johannes, I've got a question just around the on page 14. I'm just wondering if you can explain just the new rider main that's going on High Street and just how it will remove the need for the laterals.
So currently, our water main runs on the eastern side of the road corridor, along the length of the road, basically just on the inside of the curb and channel. Every connection is then connected with a 15 mil copper pipe from that main to the other side of the road, meaning that we've got all these laterals crossing the road. Now, when that lateral has to be replaced, obviously you have to dig up the road and then replace the lateral or do maintenance on that lateral. Also, if we have a new connection, you have to dig up the road and then put in a new lateral. The other challenges, all these laterals are very shallow, around 300 mil from the surface, which doesn't allow much cover that you would expect on a state highway. The purpose of the rider main is basically that you put in a parallel main on the other side of the road, and you basically have one lateral crossing the road, meaning that the new laterals will go from wouldn't cross the road. It would start just outside of the curb and channel and just go in. So what that means is in the future, if we have to get a new lateral, you don't have to dig up the road. You don't have to have this super expensive traffic management of working in the live corridor. So it provides a lot of resilience for that corridor. The other added benefit is it gives Wakakutai the ability to design whatever they like for that pavement, because previously they were restricted with those shallow laterals. So now we can take them out and then they can build a 500 mil pavement if they want to. That answer the question?
That's great. Thank you. It was just to get an understanding of, because you talked about laterals, and I was just wondering whether you're talking about the laterals that go into the property from the edge of the road, but you're talking about going across the road. So it's removing that.
Across
So
the state highway,
yeah.
which is even worse.
So just a supplementary to that, are there further areas down State Highway 2 which will get replaced in the future?
We're currently working on our Forwardworks program, and we would want to do that on not only State Highway but all our primary collectors. But the plan is to continue with this process down High Street.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, a couple of questions, Johannes. 4.5 under climate change mitigation, the solar systems that, and you've put down here 1, 2, 3, 4 in order of priority. I see that 28 Holloway Street, the council offices is on priority 1. If my question is, if we alter or rebuild or whatever that building, will the solar system be able to be replaced onto the new roof, or are we talking roofing? I'm just wondering whether that's a priority.
So maybe just on that, the buildings on Holloway Street are connected to the same ICP. So the focus is the event center, and the solar panels will be in the vicinity of the event center. It won't necessarily be on Holloway, but it will go through to the same ICP.
So ICP number. Yep. And one other question on page 18 under the Frederick Street bladder replacement, tank bladder replacement. Can you just explain to me and to other people that probably don't understand it, the floating weighted flags using reduced biofilm growth? I'm not quite sure.
I will have to get back to you on the specific detail of that element of the bladder. I know it's good to have that in there, but I don't have experience in that specific aspect of a bladder.
Yep, thank you. Cool. So my questions there on the report.
Dr. Laurence.
Just talking about solar, and I've got a little bit of experience because we put quite a lot of panels on the buildings in the high street. I'd hell of it was a power bill, so I'm all in favour. But I had pretty good experience with the local contractor, and I would like to think that you would give them serious consideration. I think you know what I'm talking about.
So in our procurement process, we do, how can I say, we do, as part of our broader outcomes, we do reward local suppliers. So we're going for a quality evaluation, meaning that we will take into consideration the relevant experience, relevant skills, and the proposed methodology, as well as the broader outcomes of a local supplier that supports the local community.
And the same methodology was used when we selected our primary contractor for renewals, and we chose GNC Diggers.
Yes, His Worship.
Just a question for Jeff, really. It'd be really interesting to have another visit down there. If we could be organised.
I think it would be really good.
Bring ourselves up to speed again and just see the advancements since our first visit down a year ago.
When we get when the pump station work is finished, I think it'd be really good. You know, the switchboard is all up and running, and the building's done. It'd be great to go down there and
Yeah, I'd love that if we could.
even meet Smooch, who's photobombed one of our interests.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We're planning to commission the pump station for the water tanks by the end of the year as well. So might be worth waiting for that. That's going to be a significant piece of work.
Yeah.
The other piece that will be underway will also be there'll be some changes to the dog pound, the animal, the overnight facility that we've got there. So they're just tidying that up, and maybe when that's done, it'll be a really good opportunity to go down and see how everything has changed down on site.
And we could
Also, there's been manuka planting on the 550. It's underneath the pivot. So there's been quite a lot happening since your last visit.
Yeah, that'd be good. It'd be good to actually talk to some of the contractors who are working for you. See how that.
Councillor.
I just had two other questions. One was also on the panel project. I'm not sure if this is a question maybe for Kelly, saying that we could save up to 37,000 per annum on our event centre power bill, which is awesome. I'm just wondering what percentage of our bill would that roughly be a saving of?
About 2% would.
I think it's a bit more, so I can't remember what the whole building is electricity, but I did check just the event centre, and that was around $15,000 electricity last year.
Wow.
So adding in the hub and these rooms and the library as well.
Awesome. And my second question was for Johannes about the NZTA budget allocations. I was wondering if you could explain how their budget allocation differs from our budgets. And I just noticed everything was only minutely spent, and I'm just wondering how that works.
Is that the next report?
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
I got ahead of myself. Hold it.
Okay.
A great segue. I've got a couple more questions, Johannes. Just around you've mentioned on the pump renewals, and you've mentioned the flow meters. If you think that that's a good decision to put those in, will you bring that to policy and projects or to a council meeting? Or will it be within existing budgets? Or
Yes, it would be. I anticipate that it would be in existing budgets. We're constantly reviewing our approved budgets and looking for for efficiencies and where we can improve and stay within the budget. So we would, if we've done it, we would probably report on it. If it falls outside of our approved budget, we would have to come to council for approval of unplanned expenditure.
Just sounds like a great idea to me.
Mm.
And page 17, just with the nursery, I was just curious, you've mentioned in there that Greater Wellington are looking at possibly starting next year. I'm just wondering if they've provided a forward plan for us to really know what might be happening.
They have. Their irrigation system is due to be set up over, so they won't be able to start irrigating until early May next year, which is their plan, and they'll start planting in and around that time. Hence why we've bought the K-lines or the pods in order to irrigate that 24 hectare lot over the summer period. We'll keep the grass down as well, but yeah, their plan is to plant. Have the irrigation system developed and ready for next winter, where the planting will occur and they'll establish them. They had hoped to get it done prior to now, but essentially their contractor let them down in terms of getting the installation of their irrigation.
My last one was just about the CCTV footage at the Carterton. I know from personal experience many years ago, going up the Carterton and just making my way over the top, not through the gates or anything, but over the top, and you can still access up the back. So I don't know how you would install messaging further into the catchment area for hunters and so forth.
We've been in discussion around that area, and we are planning to do some comms around just the significance of that catchment area and what the regulations require from us. And then we'll probably improve signage, but then also within the next LTP, we're probably looking at some penalties as well for so that we can enforce when we do find people in there. So we are working on it and improving the security of the catchment.
Is the whole, I gather not all the catchment is within CDC property, or it's part of DOC, Tararua Forest Park?
That is correct, but I think it's important that we, this is the town water supply that's coming from here. So the more we do, particularly camera and signage in that area, the better. Rather have no one there doing nothing and DOC managing the DOC area outside of it. Our town supply.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking future wise, is there an opportunity to actually segregate that area off, turn it into an actual?
I'm probably speaking a little bit outside of my line of expertise, but I do believe that whole catchment area has got type of a covenant around it of what you can and can't do on it, because it is a water supply area. We've got other areas in town as well that is treated as a water catchment area. There are some regulations around that. But I can confirm exactly what that is with the bordering properties.
Thank you. We have any further questions or discussion?
Just only one on Greater Wellington Regional Council's nursery. Is there any, other than the irrigators, is there any infrastructure that they're looking to put into there to kick that off? And what's that plan look like?
On the mound, they're planning on putting their office, so it'll be a standalone office. So you may recall there's a bit of a dirt mound backside of the reservoirs. They're planning on putting an office there, and then they'll have rainwater collection tanks and potentially septic. So, they're on a. It's a little bit ironic, but they want to be off grid, so they're not connecting to a wastewater system despite being on the wastewater plant. And so they'll be off grid. They'll have rainwater collection because they will need washdown for both humans and tools and equipment dealing with the irrigation. So that's more likely to go towards Gallen Road. The freshwater collection and the washdown will be by Gallen Road so that you can just leave site straight away. But there will be some, the main office will be on that mound, and then the rainwater collection system over towards Gallen Road. So
Could we get set
yeah, I can circulate a plan.
timelines and budget?
Yep.
What that actually looks like? Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, we have one recommendation, and that's that we received the report. You have a mover? Thank you, councillor Laurence. Seconder. Thank you, councillor Ayling. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 6.2, Ruamahanga roads and corridor access.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So firstly, just the report is based on the expenditures up until the end of August. It's just the timing of when we have to prepare our reports and when we do our reports for our monthly reports for the actual writing content. But that said, we've made some big progress, especially with the storm damage that we've received, that we've experienced. There's some good progress there, especially on Te Whara Road and now on Clifton Grove. So, and other than that, the team's also continuing with the BAU routine maintenance and getting ready for the sealing season, hopefully to start around November. So with that, I'll take the report as read and open for questions.
Councillor Ayling.
Yeah, same question as before. So if you could just explain the NZTA budget allocations and how that differs from our own budgets for our roading.
Okay. So Whakakotai works with a funding assistant rate, for what we refer to as a FAR. It differs between councils. Our FAR at the moment is 51%. What that means is within our approved budget, the overall budget, Whakakotai funds 51% of that. So if we agree in our LTP of a budget of $100, then Whakakotai would be subsidising 51% of that. We follow a parallel process in terms of the LTP with Whakakotai, where we have to submit LTP to them as well as to council, and then they review that in terms of affordability as well as we do, and then we get to an agreed middle where we can either just accept what they've approved, or we can improve and have a section of our LTP as unsubsidized. There's also some strict rules around what is a qualifying activity to be subsidized. So very standard across the whole country of what you can use certain budgets for, and if you fall without of those definitions, then you could lose your subsidy.
And
jump in there a little bit. Maybe you'd just like to expand on how the FAR rate changes for emergency events.
So within the emergency event working category, Whakakotai provides us or supports us with an additional FAR when we can show hardship.
Mhm.
That's normally how that is calculated, is when we experience storm damage or any type of damage in excess of 10% of our annual total budget. So once we've spent 10% on storms, everything after that normally qualifies for an additional 20%. In extreme events like last year with hail, or last financial year with Gabriel and hail, given an additional 20% over and above, so sitting on 91% for some of the repairs. You have to go through a formal process of applying for that. You notify them and they review and would come out and visit our roads, and then we get that approved.
The other part of my question was regarding the low percentages that had been spent so far. Is that where you would expect it to be sitting at this point? Because the drainage maintenance was 11%, structured maintenance 8%, I think was footpaths 1%, environment 14%. Where should we be sitting along their budget at this point in the year?
So the forecast for or our annual expenditure within the roading program is not in a a linear movement. So we have bigger expenditures depending on in summer. So most of our capital works get spent within the summer months, and you'll see that we'll spend our pavement renewals, our sealing renewals, our drainage renewals within a month or two, and that's the largest percentage of our budget. So we're not too, at the end of August, those numbers are reasonable. From now on till February, we'll spend probably the bulk of our budgets.
Awesome. Thank you. That answers it well.
That's Adela.
One question on the Clifton Grove Road. With Hinakura Road still being closed and we're getting extra traffic coming through from South Wai on our road, how is that road holding up? Has been holding up over the winter, Johannes, and are we getting any extra incentives in our subsidies on that road for routine maintenance and or repairs?
So we would not. So we will qualify for the additional subsidy for the storm damage. So Clifton Grove, similar to Te Whara Road, had a large volume of storm damage with the past 2 years events. A lot of that damage is in our program to complete. The actual routine maintenance part of Clifton Grove has to date been relatively normal to what we usually see, but we are aware of the significant dropouts that has to be repaired. The emergency works are fall under the additional far. However, the normal maintenance remains at the 51% part.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Gallon.
On page 27, I didn't quite understand. It's probably very straightforward. I just didn't take it in for the private users' cost recovery and so on.
Sorry, I just need to get there. I'm trying not to print them off. Can you just
Corridor access.
corridor access?
Okay.
So in the past, we would receive corridor access, and we would a corridor access request. The team will process it, go through the whole process of reviewing the TMP, what's going to be done, and a lot of time spent on that. Typical corridor access applicant is a developer, a utility operator like Chorus, Powerco, things like that. In the previous, when we were working through the new fee structure in the annual plan, we decided that should be a user pay model instead of a general rate payer. So we put together a fee structure for corridor access fees, and what we're saying there is that we're now recovering the cost of the corridor access fees from the users instead of rate payers.
Any further questions? I just wanted to acknowledge our Huranui Orangi representative, Ra, who's joined us online. Welcome, Ra.
Kia ora, everyone. Sorry, just had technical problems, but I'm on here now. Thanks.
But,
Not a question, just a comment. Chair Steve, it's a really interesting report when you actually go through all the numbers. You know, you sometimes hear people say, I see a truck or a ute of people driving around, and what are they actually doing? Well, actually, this report shows what they're doing. You know, some of the numbers, 110 potholes and, you know, 130 Ks of grading and signpost replacement, all these little incidental things that actually add up to quite a lot of work for a lot of people. And then you add the emergency events on top of that. And we're only talking about 1 month. We're talking about the month of August. So it's quite a good snapshot of how much work has to happen across the district for people to not notice anything. And I just want to acknowledge our staff and also the Ruamahanga team for just keeping things going in spite of the weather and some of the other challenges out there.
Thank you.
Just a general question, Ruamahanga, how's it going? You know, we're in a joint arrangement with South Wairarapa and Carterton. Clearly, there are issues, sometimes conversations around priorities where they have so much in the resources, staff, and equipment, plant equipment. At times, I guess there are probably competing needs between South Wai and Carterton and our Carterton-centric view of the world. How is the management of that contract going? How is it working out for us?
I believe that it's working well. I also believe that it's from all the shared services that we do, I think that's probably the most successful one. It is some months, depending of where the weather hits. We sometimes Carterton gets prioritised above South Wairarapa, and sometimes there's more work to be done in South Wairarapa. We've come a long way with our contractor to scale up their resources so that they can be on both networks at the same time. In terms of the management of the contract, that is going reasonably well. It's not without its challenges, like with many contracts, but I believe that it's working relatively well, but it does require work to make it work.
What's happening with the status of the contract right now?
Contract's coming up for renewal.
Yep.
In June next year. We've engaged with Fulton Hogan on the renewal of that contract, and our engagement's reached the point where we're waiting on South Wai's decision around their future, whether they would like to participate in the future extension of that contract.
Can I maybe just interrupt? So further to that, following that, we've progressed now. South Wairarapa and Carterton are negotiating with Fulton Hogan on the renewal of the contract. So it has progressed since that time.
It's like the two Ronnies, isn't it? Has the level of
the action and I.
Has there been a useful change in the way in which those conversations have gone since we had our presentation at South Wairarapa?
Yes, I think so. There's yes, we believe it's been quite positive. We're really comfortable with the work that Fulton Hogan are doing, particularly in our district, and would like to see that continue on. So, and there has been a positive response back from South Wairarapa, which I think would be really good for the Wairarapa district generally to keep the contract intact.
Yeah. So, were you in conversations at this stage around what Masterton's future intents are?
So Masterton.
We got an awareness.
Yes. So we've got a good relationship with Masterton in that space. So their contract, I believe, has another 2 years to go with Higgins. We have floated the idea of a Wairarapa-wide roading contract, and that's something that we could potentially look into for the future. But at this stage, they're locked into their contract. We'd probably try and, when we negotiate the rollover, we'd try and align with Masterton's timelines as well. But we are aware of what's working on their network and what's not working, and the timelines and their relationship with their contractor. So we do work closely with them.
And you'll let us know if there's opportunities in terms of, I mean, I don't know which one looks better than what, whether Ruamahanga Roads is a better model than what Masterton's currently doing. You just keeping a close eye on.
I think we have to align the dates first. So, as Johanna said, Masterton are locked into a contract with Higgins period of time, and we just need to make sure that we align the dates so that if we do something now, maybe it aligns with the date that Masterton have, so they both come up at the same time, and we can have that wider conversation again.
Great, excellent, thank you.
Discussion? No. I just wanted to talk all Deputy Mayor Williams' comments. That's a great report that I hope those interested in the community have taken the time to have a look at, because it does show the amount of work that's going on out. It's great to see the footpath renewals down the southern end of High Street. Community is always going to be very happy about that. That's so thank you very much for the report. We have again one recommendation, and that's that we receive the report. And Councillor Della is going to move that, and Mayor Williams has seconded it. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Thank you, honest. Item 6.3, resource consent update.
I'm happy to front this one. So currently on leave at the moment, so I'm happy to front and take questions.
Biggest report so far.
Yeah, it's quite comprehensive. We're thinking out of subdivision work that's currently going, which is great.
Any questions? Councillor Ayling.
I just had one. At what point does the number of these subdivisions impact our rating base? There's lots of big ones here, which is an exciting prospect in terms of bringing that number down, but how far out is that going to impact things?
It can be issued for a lengthy period of time, so up to 5 years in order to complete something, be 7 in some cases. What developers often do is hold all of the titles together in this one, and as the development is completed, roads are put in, power is connected, etc. They then request council issue title, and we issue title. So if we issue title today, for example, on a subdivision, the rating charge on that title won't start until the 1st of July in the following year. So often what you see is a consent come through here, the subdivision will be granted, a lengthy period of time, often measured in years before that subdivision titles are issued, then at least a period of up to 12 months where the title has no rates charge, and then after that 1st of July, the rates charge kicks in. Often we do find, as you'd expect, the developers know that the rates charge will kick in on the 1st of July. So often we do see requests for title to be issued in that sort of July, August period coming in, so they get the full 12 months.
Yeah.
They do hold off. But.
And Sol did say that there's quite often a rush leading up to a district plan becoming operative and changes and so forth. So this is probably, because normally these reports are 2 pages at most.
That's right.
And do we set that time frame of 5 years or 7 years, or is that a government? Thank you.
Bishop. Yeah, 47. Just looking through it, we're looking at something like around 70 rural subdivisions. Are we keeping an eye on what that's going to mean in terms of impact on infrastructure in those rural locations? I mean, I immediately think of roads. And
Roading would be the main one. And you'll find with a lot of the subdivisions that there's a requirement to open up the driveway access so that when there is people driving in or driving out, you've got a much wider view to see the road coming forward, when you're waiting at the road. The infrastructure is less in a rural subdivision. Obviously, they're not connecting to a town water supply, a town wastewater supply. They don't have rubbish collection. So it's mostly around roading where our infrastructure is required.
Because that's when we start to see as these subdivisions occur and we see those locations populated, then the width of the road becomes an issue in terms of the amount of traffic, people deciding they want to walk on the side of the road, walk their dogs on them, cycle on them. The whole infrastructure needs picture starts to grow on us. We have given these, we can't stop these subdivisions where they are illegal. And it's clear what people are taking advantage of the opportunity right now before the district plan makes changes. How do we, Jeff, how do we go about rethinking? At what point do we get to rethink the impact on that and what we're going to be charging, or our expectations of developers?
That's the long-term plan. So those fees are set as part of a long-term plan, the development fees, the roading fees. We also have other levers to pull, and council has been considering those other levers around the road speeds on some of those roads like Millers Road, like Hughes Line, where there has been a lot of development, and we do know that there's more traffic and there's more pedestrians in some of those corridors. So we consider whether or not the road speed should be reduced to take into account the fact that there is more people on these roads compared to what there was previously. But yes, absolutely, fees and contributions will come up as part of the long-term plan conversation. But there are a number of levers.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I think something we're going to have to keep an eye on.
Item number 14, for discretionary activity to amend an existing consent, etc. I know right at the end of that, I mean that's a consent for obviously a subdivision or a subdivision, but right at the end it says the decision noted that a quarrying activity is intended for this site. And this will directly affect the development of this subdivision and further construction. Any comment there? How can we, obviously, if there is going to be a quarrying activity, that will require another variation or consent.
It's a different consent for the quarrying activity. There was, is this the one on Parker Road?
Yeah.
Is that the one right at the end of this document that around quarrying? Is that the second part to
It's another one.
Is it?
It's not the one on Parker Road. It
doesn't actually say.
No, I don't think it actually says.
It is Parker Road.
It is. Okay.
So the consent was granted that allowed a small amount of material to be moved, I think up to 3,000 cubic metres for the subdivision. And that was not considered to be a quarry consent. So that was considered as part of the subdivision consent. If there is a quarrying requirement or a desire to do quarrying on that site, it will require a different consent, obviously.
Okay, thank you. And the other question or a note that I have noted that out of these 20, I think there's about 22 different subdivisions and that listed here. They're basically all rural. So my concern is as part of the Waterways Committee is is also, these lots going to be cut up with little bits of water race in them as well. So I think that we need to be really mindful of the water race users and what they're being used for and their obligations when they've got water race, as we've already talked about it.
And we can use the LIM report.
Yes.
To flag that when people are considering purchasing property.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess increasingly is just keeping that high level of situational awareness around, you know, we approve 75 rural subdivisions here in a sweep. Whether it's water races, whether it's road, whether it's traffic, whether it's cycles, whether it's walking, whether it's the mayor being asked to make representation to the power company because of the intermittent service that's going in there, there are always drop downs that we end up being approached on. I guess that I'm just conscious that we need to be maintaining a level of situational awareness as to where we're going and just being sure that we are ticking off the issues or highlighting issues in advance so that we can start factoring in, Jeff. Yeah, I think I'd like to get that higher sense. So, yeah.
All right. And that's all
I know it's long
getting
planning,
built into the water race, what's going out,
Yeah,
what's getting rid of titles and everything else. So there's going to be information.
It will most definitely.
The new district plan will probably reduce this sort of activity though,
It cuts.
Don't go away.
I think the new district plan obviously has changes in the plan, but I believe, you know, what we're seeing is private property owners making private decisions, and they'll always continue to do that to suit their needs, and we just need to make sure that the district plan has the community's needs in the forefront of the mind.
And it's not just the subdivision, it's also about changes in land use. You know, so we've just got
Highly productive land in particular.
Yeah, and we've seen a chop up of some large farms in our area, and that's meant land use change, and that's meant a change in the impact on the roading. And whereas it used to be the odd sheep truck every now and then, now it's contractors and God knows what up and down the road all the time. Yeah, and that's impacts on councils' contracts and councils' budgets. Yeah, it probably the changes that in the government policy statements around arable land protecting land is certainly going to have an impact on the number of subdivisions that we see and where those are occurring. But I think it just brings us back to that, maintaining that situational awareness of what's happening out there and what impact it's going to have on us that we haven't factored in.
Even Mayor Williams.
Yeah, just kind of following on from that discussion. I mean, once again, as I said in the last report, this is 6 weeks worth of work from our team, a team of 2, and you know, a lot of work there. And in terms of the council as a business, it's great to see that they're all granted and that we're actually growing their business. I note also that they're all granted with conditions. And just following on from that conversation we're having, I wonder if it might be helpful now and again if the team just plucked one out at random and gave us an indication of the types of conditions that are applied to a rural consent, to give us a bit of greater understanding around how the growth is balanced with protecting the types of concerns that get raised around this table, around roading and around infrastructure and things like that, you know, without breaching confidentiality, but maybe even just a summary of the types of conditions that this scale of applications.
We could do that.
Yeah, just as an exercise, I guess, might be quite useful. Thank you.
think Solitaire tries to fit different things in there when the block of land might have flood zones in it, and so you can't build a home in that certain part of that block and so forth. So,
sorry, keep interrupting. We have pretty thorough conditions put on the consent, particularly around like water races and roading and access lanes, right-of-ways and things like that.
I'm confident through the process, and I think most of us are that have been here a while know how it works in the backroom function. But in terms of policy and projects, maybe if we just sort of, got a higher level understanding of how that protection works in practice as things are being processed, and in this public arena, people might be able to see also that those sort of things that concern people are being managed through the district plan and through the consent process. Thanks.
One question, one comment, and observation. How much of these consents are handled in-house, and what's the mix in terms of what we outsource?
So mostly they're done in-house. So Solitaire and Bex will do it in-house. Where we get a consent that maybe we may have a conflict, so we know the developer particularly well. We know there could be quite a lot of public feedback on it. We do outsource it to an external consultant to manage that consent on our behalf. That way, the decision is completely impartial from staff, and we get the best community outcome. But the majority of our consents are done in-house.
Thanks. Page 42, one that Councillor Adela raised, discretionary activity, storage of vehicles. Am I reading that if a individual has got a consent for a dwelling and then decides to turn that into a construction yard, they need consent to do that?
To store the vehicles, yes, they do. They need it's interesting. They need consent to store vehicles on site. Yeah.
That's useful. Thank you. Yeah, and the other one is that just want to pass on. As recently as yesterday afternoon, I received a phone call from a person, won't name, who just wanted to compliment the regulatory staff, Solitaire and the team, in particular for the level of collaboration and assistance that they've received. And it was pretty high praise. This person is not prone to giving out praise, let me assure you. He's very often on my phone telling me what we're doing wrong or asking what we could do differently to be kinder. But it was a telephone conversation I feel need to be passed back. Well done.
Thank you.
That's all questions and discussion. We have one recommendation, that's that we receive the report. Happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, His Worship the Mayor. Mr. Chair, in favour.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, our final item is Karakia Timatanga. Ra, would you like to say Karakia?
Ai. E te atua, e pa, e whakawhitai ana tō mātou ki a koe mō tō hui nei, mō tō kaha, mō tō aroha, mō tō whakaaro. Ma ihu karaite, āmene.
Thank you, everybody. Clear the meeting closed.